Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
This live
Are you
talk.
ready?
Live
Are you
talk.
ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
And welcome to Live Talk. I am your host, Arthur Jeremiah, alongside my two co-hosts, Minister Samuel. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir, and welcome back to Live Talk.
Okay. And the spiritual ambassador, Ike Ezekiel.
Peace. Good afternoon.
All right, so before we go to anything, let's go to our general statement and disclaimer.
General statement. Live Talk is proudly powered by TBS Goodwill, Builders of the Highway Foundation, and Men of Purpose. Together, we're bringing about awareness to the everyday challenges facing individuals, communities, and our nation. We tell our stories, listen to yours, and always respect different perspectives. Want to share your voice? Email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com to be a guest, or if you would like to contribute to our mission, purpose, go to livetalkorl.com to give a donation. Disclaimer. Information provided during this event and others to come does not constitute the official opinion of Live Talk or its affiliate entities. It is strongly recommended that viewers seek independent expert advice regarding any topics discussed, as legal requirements differ significantly across jurisdictions and are subject to frequent changes. If you have questions or concerns, you can always email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Facebook and or Instagram at Live Talk Orlando.
All right. We have to get that out of the way. My brothers, we are in different locations all over the country. Minister, how you doing, sir?
Doing great this morning, or this afternoon. Like you say, we spanning the globe. We're spanning the globe.
My brother Ike Ezekiel.
Beautiful. Everything is magnificent.
Golden in the land.
Yes, sir.
All right. So as for me, we finally finished up on tax season. However, it seems like it's continuing, but deadlines is done. I'm not going to stress anybody about completing a deadline. We will get you done. We had to file extensions, but it's better now. I would say that much. And then we had a beautiful event yesterday. Minister, I was trying to get you to right in the community, right over there. What is
the El Claudia Allen Center.
Yes, sir. Yes, it was based off of real estate, NARAP and Women's Council. They had an event, like a real estate event, and I was pushed on to a panel to talk about investments, investing in real estate, and it was a great event. We had our dear commissioner there, brother I went to school with. Matter of fact, we brushed elbows and over there in Jones High, Brother Bacardi Burns. Had a great conversation with him, had some great interviews as well. So I will be bringing a lot of that to the show. Because at the same time, we're journalists as well. Y'all know that, right? So we have to stay in the community, make sure we bring all that back to Live Talk so we can talk about it.
Correct.
But for my family, we're going to get right into the show today. I will give you a rundown. First, we're going to have the minister word of today. Right after that, we'll go to a commercial break, and then we'll come back with our main topic. We're talking about rebuilding the village, mentorship, youth, elders, and community ties. And then from there, we'll go to another commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll see what's on our brother Ike Ezekiel's mind. I'm pretty sure he'll share with us what's on his mind, and we'll talk about that a little bit, and then we'll get ready to close out with a motivational quote or reading from the host. So, minister, with no further ado, what is the word of today?
Okay, our word of today, April the 19th, 2026, is going to be community. And community is defined as a social group of any size whose members reside in a specific locality. They can share government and often have a common cultural and historical heritage. Community, a group of people living together and practicing common ownership. Community, sharing or having certain attitudes and interests in common. A unified body of individuals. Community, a group of people with a common characteristic or interest living together within a larger society. Also, a state or feeling of caring about and wanting to interact with others within a group. Some synonyms of community are similarity, agreement, identity, neighborhood, and village. And that word brought to mind a scripture that I kind of enjoy from Ecclesiastes 4:9-12, where it says two are better than one. But the word of the day, community.
All right. Well, we appreciate that word of the day. I'm pretty sure we're going to hear a lot of that today as we get into our main topic. But we'll go to a commercial break and we'll be right back.
Because Scott and Associates always treats me like family, I refer my family to them. So when preparing for my taxes and I know exactly what to bring in coming in, it makes the process so much easier. Anyone should hire Scott and Associates because they are professional, respectful, and very knowledgeable. And with all of my heart, I can always count on them.
What do all these people have in common besides a beautiful smile, healthy teeth, and gums? They all use Zadi toothpaste. Zadi toothpaste is made with all natural ingredients. Zadi toothpaste is fortified with moringa and baking soda. Zadi toothpaste is suds-free, making it an excellent choice for kids. All natural, fortified, and suds-free. Get yours today at noystore.com.
All right. Welcome back. And as we get into our program today, we, of course, we're talking about community. We're going to be talking about rebuilding the village. And everybody talks about the village. So everybody talks about this. But the real question is, where did the village go? Today, we're talking about mentorship, our youth, our elders, and how we rebuild real community in a disconnected world. Because everything we talked about this season, healing, money, we're going to talk about love in our next show. We're going to get deep into that. But it all comes back to this. We need each other. So today, brothers, I want to start off, I want to get personal. I want to connect with our listeners. I want them to be able to connect with us. So when you think about growing up, who were the people that helped raise you outside of your parents? So we're going to get a look up close and personal with this question here. And which one of you brothers want to chime in first on that one?
I can start. I had two key people in my community that gave me a perspective on different courses of life. I had an auntie who was very successful track coach. And she showed me what hard work, dedication, and education can take you as far as you choose to go. She instilled an understanding that you have to read in order to know, because people before you have left their wisdom to guide you, and they put it in books or they put it in videos. So you have to do your research about whatever subject matter that you want to get into, because somebody has already did that previous to you trying to accomplish that. So you piggyback off of the knowledge that they leave behind. You're not the first plumber. Somebody was doing plumbing before you. So learn from them. Like today, they got all these plumbing for dummies, this for dummies, or that for dummies, or instructional tutorial videos to help you understand how to accelerate your growth in a particular skill set. And then growing up in what's known as the hood, you have hood figures that you look up to, the local guys in the neighborhood. And there was one particular guy that seemed to have it all. He had the money, he had the jewelry, he had the reverence from the masses of people within the community. So he was somebody you wanted to be just like. You wanted to dress like him, talk like him. So as children, you young, you want to emulate somebody that has what you look for as success, whether it's on a positive or negative principle. And we know mostly in the hood, it's on a negative polarity. But since that seems to be the atmosphere that we're immersed in, it seems normal because the masses of people that's within that community, that's the lifestyle that they live. So that's what you gravitate toward. And, you know, he gave me mentorship. And he would give you rules and regulations that govern the streets and how you should live while you're in the streets, and your ultimate objective to get out of the streets if this is the route that you're choosing to go. So, like they say, even though you can be in a bad situation or in a bad circumstance, you can extract the good out of it and get the lessons in it to make you better. So those are the main two people that allowed me to learn how to become who and what I am. So I had both sides of the polarity, and I learned how to extract what I needed from both sides to become who I wanted to become. You had to have a vision of who I am and what was it going to take to make that a reality. So I'm forever grateful for those two people that was my GPS growing up.
All right, bring us something. Okay. That's a follow-up to that. When you're talking about your auntie, how old were you at that time?
Oh, this started when I was like 6.
Powerful.
She put me in the book club because a lot of the learning was tied to what I could get from her. So it wasn't, oh, I'm just going to be benevolent and go buy you some shoes or some clothes. You had to put in some sweat equity. And that equity was reading different books. So I learned that at a young age, the value of reading. And if anybody's ever read, you know the world that opens up to you. It expands your mind. It allows your creative juices to begin to flow because you get to see life outside of the atmosphere that you're immersed in. And in doing that right there, you know that the world is bigger than the hood. It's bigger than the projects that I'm in. So now in order to start living on the other side of the projects, because you see examples of it, you know, we grow up in sports. So we would have teammates that was not part of our communities. You know, they would be from the Hispanic community or the white communities. So when you would have gatherings, you would see how these people live. You would go to their neighborhoods and see the difference between where you live and where they live. So in your mind, you were seeing a dirty cup and a clean cup. And if you decided you wanted the clean cup, you needed the information that would allow you to move from the dirty cup to the clean cup. And that information, especially back then, you're talking about the 80s, was in books because you didn't have the internet to go and jump on in YouTube and learn how to do anything. So you had to get it by putting in that manual labor. So you had to go to the libraries. You had to go places where that information was prevalent at. So,
Sir, Minister, that person that pulled into you growing up?
Well, I actually had quite a few. It was fortunate because when we talking about a community, I was fortunate enough to be raised. It was in a Black community, and the thing about us having shared values, a lot of the Black families then were either coming from moving out of the country or doing agriculture, where they were citrus workers. They would come into the city or different areas, but they would get there and the common thing was about they really had oppression and they were escaping that oppression. So when we were in a community, we really were a community. Like I say that because I can remember being 6 years old, walking down the street and not having fear, and not just me, but others. Where nowadays, who would let a 6-year-old walk down the street or be at home by themselves, and you didn't have to worry about them because you know that the next door neighbor, or like Miss William down the street, Mr. Johnson across the way, even though if you did something wrong, you know that they would take care of you and then send you to your parents and they would take care of you. At the same time, they also protected you. So it was really a sense of community. But if I went on a few persons, like of course my father was there, but I had a friend and his dad was like a military guy. So he had a perspective from where he came from. And it was Mr. Sampson. He would take us out of our neighborhood to other neighborhoods, sort of like what Brother Ezekiel said. And he would either take us to certain restaurants or bowling in different communities so we could see the other side. And he would talk about the values of how difficult it was for him coming up. And he didn't get that opportunity. And the education, like they had to, a lot often, like him and my dad both dropped out of high school and went to the military for opportunities. So then they could get work and come back and be looked at differently. So they really gave us that value of he would instill about working and honesty and earning your own keep. And his wife would teach Bible study weekly, and we would have to, learn scriptures and come back the next week and talk about those scriptures. And I can even think about another one, like a friend of mine, his granddad, half of them had 2-parent households, but then some had moms. My friend, he had a single mom, but being raised by the grandparents. So she lived there, but his dad, Mr. Buck, and he probably had only a 3rd grade education, but he was entrepreneurial. He had a pickup truck and he cut yards, but he would do work in really, really nice neighborhoods, Black, white. In white neighborhoods, he did it in Black. But even though because he couldn't go get a job downtown, but he learned how to hustle and he made his own money and nobody had to do anything from him. So he taught that if all you can do is a lawnmower, you got to know how to use it. And this was before weed eaters. This was before all of these backpacks. But he had an entrepreneurial spirit because what they came from, they was trying to instill on us that you can get through this, but this is what you have to do. And a lot of that really stuck when you saw them and heard those stories and realized what they came through. And even though we didn't go through it as bad as they did, and they were trying to make sure that we shouldn't have to go through that and not to go through it.
I tell you, and as you brothers were just, speaking, I'm sitting here thinking myself, I raised in a single parent household. My mother, she didn't pass ninth grade as far as education. Um, I had my grandmother, but we're not talking about parents, and we're talking about that person outside of that. Then I have to look at the community, and first person that somewhat come to mind was Mr. Curtis at the Callahan Center, where we used to go, and although we didn't have money at the time, he provided a environment that we can come in and just socialize as young people and be able to play the games, etc. And then also, I think Brother Ezekiel alluded to it as well. Like when it comes to sports, you had coaches that influence you from a discipline standpoint. But the one thing that I was missing was that interaction from a personal standpoint. How to look at someone to know, like how to look at a male figure, how I should be. And I contribute that to one of my friends, his family and his dad. He used to, he went to work every day. He had a family, had a wife, and, him being one of his sons, and he had a household that he had to provide for. But when he would get paid, he kind of looked at me as a son. He would, give his son some money, of course, but I'm with him, so he would give me something, and then he would take us fishing. So he gave me the idea of what a father figure looked like, somewhat manhood, if you will. And I always remember that from this day. And I would say just the community itself. I believe we really did have a village coming up, because I remember if you did something wrong and somebody seen you say, I'm gonna tell Lucy. Lucy was my mother's name. I'm gonna tell Lucy. And then if you hear that, like you straighten up real fast, because you don't want, Lucy to know about what you did. So, having that village and having those eyes around to be able to keep you straight was very, very important. But one of the things that neither one of you brothers mentioned was, and I thought maybe that would come out, was the church. And the church, you would think the church would be something that's close to the community, which I believe it is. It just wasn't close to the community when I was growing up. Like I didn't get that same feeling that a lot of people may get today or may not get today. But I remember being in a very poverty-stricken condition, and all I can see, like my mother used to talk about God, and then when I would look on the wall and I see this, see how a different persuasion of people, I would say, that didn't look like me. I would ask her about that, and she would just say, "It's God." I know, being a young boy, you don't really pay that no attention. You don't even get into the gist of that. But growing up now, I understand she was not. She wasn't educated enough, or she was, brought up a certain way that's what she believed, and a lot of people believe like that. But as you become more conscious of certain things, you understand that our people have went through something, coming out slavery. Because my mother, the drop out of school, she obviously had to help out with the family. So that took away the opportunity for her to get full education at that particular time. So I had to grow up knowing what she knew, and didn't have that outside of that person to be able to pour into me, to give me the information and knowledge I needed to be the best that I could be. I had to learn however I had to learn. So although, I say all of that, there still was a village of people that watched over us and made sure that we was walking that straight and narrow path so that we don't go astray. But we know as time goes on, there's certain things that happen. And as we know right now today, and we're going to talk about that a little bit right now, from that particular time there, well, we didn't have, I think one of your brothers alluded to, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have a lot of the things that we have today. And it seems like we're at a point of rebuilding that village because the village been disconnected for so long. Do you think kids today have that same support that we had coming up? Or what could be the change that's needed in order to, bring about that support, considering the day that we're in right now?
First, absolutely not. They do not have a support system. Second, there's numerous changes that need to be made in order to get that village concept back. And looking at the flow of society is going to be extremely hard because since COVID made everybody stay inside, people have got comfortable with staying inside. So in communities, you don't see children flooding the streets anymore playing games and just being outside. The technology world, video games, the phones, all of these keep the children rooted in one spot. So they can get a tablet or iPad and go sit down for hours and play on that right there. So it's killing the social fabric of the community because the community is not interacting. So if a child is not in some type of sports program, then they're being socially held back because they don't get the interaction with their peers. And then if you have a child that's shy, naturally, it's during school, it's hard for them to be outgoing and meet people. And then when they come home, they jump on the games. They grab one of the technical machines. So they're never going to overcome that right there. And we know in this day and age that these children with these games have become so addictive that when a parent does take it from them, they throw temper tantrums, they spaz out. So the community mindset is dwindling. There's no community events. There's no, I see your child in the streets cutting up. I can't say nothing to him. I can't punish your child. It's going to be serious repercussions about that. Those parents are going to come out in a rage. They're going to be irate about, hey, why you said this to my child? What make you think you can do this to my child? So it's no longer the neighborly mentality to where, okay, they trying to correct my child when I wasn't there to help my child do better. They're going to take it as a personal attack. And now they're going, you think I can't, it's a lot that's going on that's eroding the community mentality. So the things like the mentorships, the Boys and Girls Club, places like that are needed because now you get these children that get the mentors outside of the household that will allow them to be able to see and learn things that the parents can't teach them just because they have different experiences. Your mama ain't never been a football player. So your football coach, he could teach you about football, but they also give you life lessons in the process of that right there that she can't give you, especially from a male perspective. So we have to start doing something to bring the sense of a community because right now we're not a community because one of the denotations of community is a group of people together with common interests. We live in the same neighborhood, but we have no common interests. Everybody is doing their own individual activities. It's not for the benefit of the community, it's just for the benefit of their household. Most people don't even know their neighbors these days. People are not interacting. So it's a large hurdle that has to be overcome to get back to the 80s, the 70s, and the 60s when everybody used to interact with one another. And I think, as I said, technology has brought about that great divide, because in our day and age, you was outside 5, 6, 7 hours a day. Right. Well, don't come back in this house till later. Right? Now, these children, they get these gadgets as they new babysitters. So, yeah, they definitely behind times, and they're becoming socially awkward. And that's why the bullying and all that, these children don't know how to deal with it. So we definitely, as communities, need to make changes so that we can start acting like a community. We're not like the ants where everybody is interacting and making moves for the betterment of the colony. Today, everybody is just being selfish individuals. They're not caring about their neighbor's welfare. And there's no love that neighbor in the communities today.
It's so many stigmas that goes on in the Black community that keeps us divided and make one defensive when, like you said, when it comes to correcting someone's child or just being a part of that village. And I think that comes from the young mindsets of parents that that they have instilled. And if they feel like somebody is attacking them in any type of way that make them feel uncomfortable, or if they grew up a certain way, they feel like they have to defend that instead of embracing that. So that village mentality makes sure that our children are growing up properly. But Minister, what's missing now that you had then?
And I think you all are saying it, and like part of what was missing, because we have different generations, and because technology, the internet, and the digital is where it is, the community that a lot of people, the society embraces today, it's a community that's not, it's not their neighbor. Because like you can go online and video chat or talk to someone on a Instagram or whatever, and they can be in another state. And I guess that has its benefits, but what happens is when we had the community was actually closer, where you could reach out and touch someone. Like you had mentioned about community centers, and I don't know if a lot of youth are even aware. Like, you remember we would go to the community centers and they would have games. The coaches were there. We would spend hours there. And it was a group of children that we interacted with, not just this was after school, not during school, like evenings or summer programs. But the community that they have now, for example, if you playing basketball, you get together with the group that you're playing basketball with at the game. Or if you're in music, you might get together with those doing music, or if y'all got a chess club or a bowling, they get together so the communities can be like disconnected, where a lot of times now the parents you can have 20 parents that'll drive their children to a common event. But when they leave that event, they going all back to different neighborhoods. And that's a broader community. But what's missing is that the local community, like with your neighbors, like how many today, when you move into a neighborhood, do you actually like know your neighbor or the people down the street? Because I know I can remember having friends in the community the different neighbors on the same street. And you could have been from a single parent household, you could be from a two-parent household, but if somebody was having dinner, if somebody was hungry, you could come to my house, and we will, even though it was a big household, we will find a way to get you a meal. If I was down the street and they were having dinner or lunch, I don't care how many kids it was, if you wanted a meal, they would make you a meal and they would allow you to eat, because we had a real sense of community. And I'm talking about people on your same street. That's almost unheard of in most communities now, where you don't have to, example, you don't even have to subscribe to Halloween, but a lot of us grew up with that tradition. But back then, little kids could go out, you could do Halloween, and your biggest fear was you didn't want the kids that was older than you, stealing your bag of candy once you got it full. But you didn't have that fear of somebody poisoning the candy or doing something ungodly to the children, because we literally looked out for the community. And those concerns were not there because it was closer, and because we have gotten, like, it's my child, you can't talk to my child, you can't touch my child, and different, like, parenting has changed. So like you say, you can't talk to somebody about their child. So if they're going out trick-or-treating now, the parents take them. When we went out, the grown parents would not take no kids to no trick. You might have your big brother, like your big sister, so the big kids didn't steal your candy. But now the adult has to go with the child, because there's a fear and a society, because it is so expanded. It's like, I got to protect my child, because that protection, that part of the community that protected you is no longer there. And one of the ways to do that is we have to start reconnecting literally with our neighbors, like our neighbors. And the society that we produce now really tells you to disconnect from your neighbors. Like fences were to keep the dog in, keep people from breaking in your property. Fences now, when it's privacy, it's almost like, don't bother me. And there's a difference. You can have a one type fence, but you can have another type fence but there was a difference. And there is a difference.
Right. Yeah, because when you have the afraid to live in their own community, or you would go in someone's house and they have bars on the window, bars on the door, and if, God forbid, if a fire happens, they forget where the key is at. They're not getting out. And if they haven't given it to the fire department, by the time they get in there, it's going to be too late. But it's the community that we're living in, where the elderly is afraid of the youth. And when I just look back and I think about, everything that we said, and just realize how it truly impacted me, or impacted us, and I can tell from you brothers, how that really impacted you. And like, even to this day, when I would see like older people and how they would recognize me is through my mom, because even at that particular time, they knew who her children were. And they was able to see me. And I guess my mother was a very kind and nice woman. And she was very, open to that village concept. So if you see my son doing something that's not right, you have the authority or the right to reprimand him. And that's what you're seeing at that time in the community. So the question becomes, like, listening to everything that we're talking about, like right now, it really makes you wonder, what changed? What are some of the things that may have changed up to this point here from what we experienced?
That's simple. The war on drugs.
There you go.
That created the collapse of community. Because everything that we were saying up until the war on drugs was a community mentality. From the feeding, from the looking out, to the housing, to, hey, yeah, I'll watch your children while you at work to make sure you can go to work. All of those neighborly duties disintegrated when the crack cocaine decimated the communities. Now you couldn't depend on your neighbor no more because they was on drugs. And while they on drugs, I can't have you looking after my children because you're not in the right mind frame to be able to accomplish that. So that was the beginning of the end of community. Once that spread like wildfire through the communities, then everything went downhill. And it eventually led to the technology age, which just further keep pushing it downhill. As we already said, that it's keeping neighbors from knowing one another. Most people right now don't know their immediate neighbors. And I mean the houses next door to them. They know nothing about these people. So if you don't know your neighbors, we can never be a community. And I think it started then with the war on drugs.
You know, I was talking to a brother yesterday, and you hit the nail right on the head. That he was driving to his neighborhood, into his garage, and he really don't see his neighbors like that. And it didn't dawn on him until later. He was like, man, I really don't connect with my neighbors like that. I have to get more into the community, connecting with my neighbors and people. We have to get back to that. We're just talking about this yesterday. And I believe that's and even there has to be a stigma there when it comes to that. It's a reason why we do the things that we do. And I think it's based on societal norms and what we see happening every day, where you may be in a neighborhood, nice neighborhood, Black community. You have homeowners there because there's a lot of neighbors, like neighborhoods like that. Minister, you live in a neighborhood like that. Homeowners, been homeowners for like a long time. These are teachers. These are, principals, judges, that live in these communities that are, Black folks, prominent Black folks, but have, children that have, brought grandchildren that they on a whole nother level, of thinking. And it's like, you're trying to shield yourself from that. So are we more guarded today, Minister, than before?
I say we definitely are, because even in the communities, and we have those, community meetings where we do come together. And, the Commissioner Burns, he was just out last week, and we get 25 people at a meeting. That's great, because that's a lot of people. But there's hundreds of people in the community. And the unfortunate thing is, the strongest support is from those middle to older. It's hard to get the younger people to come out because they don't see the value in neighbors and community. And we're working on trying to overcome that by reaching out to them one-to-one, because they really don't get that concept of your physical neighbor being your neighbor. And like my brother said, that the one with the drug, the crack and the cocaine, it did a social economic thing, and it changed that spirit of community. And I think it's what caused people to withdraw. And then once we withdraw, it's like that community and the neighborhoods begin to crumble because you don't have that unity that you should have.
I also believe another thing changed. They start to change certain laws when we talk about, disciplining our children. Because I got disciplined when I came up. And back then, during that time, that was a common thing in the community. Don't spare the rod, correct the child. That's biblical, lessons that are taught. But nowadays, you can't do none of those things. In fact, you may not need to do many of those things because of the technology age it is. You can take a phone from a child, but I think Ezekiel alluded to, they trip out when you do that, and it's like now you almost want to choke them out, but it's like you don't want to go to jail neither. So I believe that's one of the things that was taken away as well through just laws, importance of just disciplining. And there are many different forms of discipline. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean beating your children until they're unconscious, but there are just different forms of discipline that we have to take, I believe, within the community that one needs in order to understand the importance of walking that straight and narrow path. But also, when we talk about nowadays, and I look at some of the organizations that I work with, like MOP, Men of Purpose, and one of our missions is to get into the community, to bring back the knowledge to our youth of who they are, because I think that is missing. When you don't know who you are, and the school systems are not teaching that, you tend to fall into this place where you're trying to just fit in with society. And Brother Ezekiel, your aunt, she was very vital part of your life to be able to teach you that, because a lot of our youth are not being taught that, and nor are there a lot of mentors out there that understand the importance of that. So do we believe, having this information and knowledge is a busy lifestyle is what take away from us, like pouring into the community, as we create some of these organizations, understanding the need in our community, how does a busy lifestyle play a part in, us getting to that point of really pouring back into our community?
Well, that's a vital obstacle to overcome, because that impediment implies that first, everybody has the mindset to where I have to secure my house. So I have to work. I have to look after my family. So depending on my job, the time that I have to put in on it, and then the time I come home and put into my family, is I may not have enough time left over to pour into the community. So you have to make a conscious effort that you're going to carve out time for the community, which means you have to create a schedule for yourself and see where you can eradicate certain activities that are non-productive. So instead of sitting around watching 2 hours of my favorite TV shows, I can cut that back to an hour and go out and give to the community for an hour. I mean, most of us are church-going people, so we believe in paying tithes. And we have to understand that that 10% that's tithe also goes toward your time. It's not just monetary. So your time in investing, raising up the children in the community, giving them wisdom that only you have from the experiences that life has given you. So we can't use it and say, I just don't have enough time, because you make time for what you want to do. Mm-hmm. You're going to do that, because if I offered you $100 million to do something, you're going to make the time to do it. You're not going to tell me, well, I'm too busy to make this. No, you're going to move things around in your schedule. You're going to cancel certain things, and you're going to be where I need you to be at that time because you're looking at the reward. So if the children are our future, then we need to be looking at the reward. Because if I can pour some wisdom about relationships into the youth, then these youth may grow up dating my granddaughters, my daughters, my nieces. So if I can give them the wisdom of what it is to be a man, then that's less abuse that I have to look at down the line. Because I know you're going to be able to court her in a manner and treat her as she's supposed to be treated. So we have to start carving out time for the community if we want to get back to a community mentality. We can't be too busy. And unfortunately, you see that, as I said earlier, even in their own household, they're too busy to interact with their children, so they give them these gadgets as the new babysitters. So if you ain't going to do it in your own house, yeah, it's going to be rare that you're going to step outside of your house and to pour into other children. And the key factor is that what you said about those laws being altered, because now disciplining children can cost me more than I'm willing to lose, especially if I have a wayward child that needs that rod. But I know, again, the consequences of that right there. And so that's stopping people in the community from trying to chastise other people's children, because not only can you get it from the government, you can also get it from the parent themselves. And since most of these children now are young when they're having children, they have a concept due to their upbringing that, hey, man, you ain't got the right to say or do anything to my child, because that's most of their mentalities, these people in their early 20s. You can't really tell them anything. So they're passing that wisdom on to the next generation. So there's a great generational gap between the elders in the community and the younger people in the community that definitely needs to be healed.
This kind of leads me to, just thinking about the trust. When it comes to connecting within our community, there's a lack of trust. And I know I talked about MOP, but Builders of the Highway Foundation, another organization that I work with, minister you work with as well. When it comes to that trust factor, we're seeing a lot of our elders that don't trust youth because of the mindset that the youth currently have. Where does the lack of trust play a part in trying to rebuild that community, Minister?
That trust, it has to be reestablished, but it has to go both ways, from the adult, but also from the youth. And that's where it also, like the community, it have to be from the parent to let your child know, like, those simple values of respecting your elders, even if they're not your biological parent. It's like you really have to be able to instill that, because if that can be instilled, then a child will know to respect their elders. Because in the communities that we grew up in, it's like the people knew who you were. Even if you weren't on your street, they knew your parent. They knew your mama name, or they knew your daddy name, or they knew your auntie name. And they really didn't have to touch you. It was I'm gonna tell your mama, I'm gonna call your daddy, I'm gonna tell your auntie. And you know enough that I'm not gonna do that. But because that trust now has been diminished, Like, and we know, hey, we would have fights when we were kids, but if you had to go do that in a particular place and a spot, because if you just did it, you could do it in the street and in front of the house, but that was going to be a quick fight because the parents would come out or an adult would come out and they would either stop you, and it's like they knew your auntie, they knew your daddy, they knew your mama, and they was going to squash it. Where now, because that respect is not there, like I know that at one point with youth in my neighborhood, when the children knew me and they would call me, it's called in Hebrew, it's Abba, even though I'm not I could talk to their children, I could discipline their children, like, you're not going to do that, I'm going to take you home. But with children that you don't know, and they can be young, but you really can't discipline them because they can be 15 and they're packing, and they can be doing something as simple as, it's like, why are you on your bike in the middle of the street and you're blocking traffic? This is in a residential neighborhood. And if you tell them to move their bike, the mindset, because the trust is gone and that respect isn't there, it's like a 15-year-old is carrying a gun, and is it worth you getting shot or shooting a 15-year-old because because the way some people drive it, you in the bike in the road, some people will hit you. I have enough respect to slow down, and I'm gonna let you get out of the way and go around. But it's those simple interactions where we talking about trust that has to be put back, and it begins at home. It begins in the churches. It begins in these laws that you have to be able to trust your neighbor. See, because people will change the law, and then the law say you can't touch a child, and that's the law. But guess what? If your child break the law, when the red and blue come out there, oh, they gonna touch your child and put a hand on them. They gonna put a nightstick on them, or they gonna put a bullet in them, and there's nothing you can do. So you need to ask yourself a question. Would you rather have your neighbor talking to your child, or do you want the law to come talk to your child? And if you look like us and the law don't look like us, and it sometimes can look like us, but because they're in our community, that outcome for your child is going to be a lot more detrimental than having a neighbor bring your child back home, than the law to come to your door with a message of your child not coming back home. And I think people don't see the reality of that community of, that's what that law says. Because, hey, you touch my child, oh, now they get ready to come out there with you. But the law can touch your child, and then you can't do anything about it. And now we got to go hire high-powered attorneys to talk about police brutality in our community. When if we brought that trust back, we would need the police to be police in our community. Not like that.
And you touched on a couple of things, like the fear of getting involved. So I remember back in the days, if someone is fighting, adult driving, it stop and just jump out the car, stop, break it up, and it wasn't like no fear of doing that at that time. But like you said, nowadays a 15-year-old is packing. So you thinking twice about that. You know what? Let me just mind my business and keep it pushing. And that's the thing about it, and that's the trust factor we're talking about. Can I even trust this situation to take to go into doing the things that we would do, that we would see adults do when we was coming up? Or should I just leave that alone because I'm not sure of what may come out of this situation? And nowadays, because you can be packing, they can be packing, and for the most part, if you're packing, that means you may know how to use a gun. If they packing, they don't know how to use no gun. So even if they shoot at you, they may shoot everybody else but you. So that's a thing that we have to just be mindful of as well. when dealing with our youth nowadays, and it ain't about judging them, it's about the society that we're living in. And then one of the things too, we talked about a little bit was technology and how it's replacing relationships because everything now is about social media. And we have friends that is not our friends, but we think everybody that's connected to us are our friends. We don't really know what a friend is. I understood, from a very young age, or I would say when I went into the tomb, that I really understood what a friend was. A friend was somebody that has a mutual understanding of our relationship and how I felt about those who I called my friends. Obviously, they didn't feel the same way about me. So they wasn't a friend of mine. And I tell my children to my grandchildren, they be very careful about who you call your friends. Those are your associates. A friend, and you can like them however you want to. You may, have a special connection there with them. If something happened, you may give to them, but they may not feel the same about you. So they just may not be your friend, they're your associate. And I think nowadays, I think that's a confusion as well when it comes to technology replacing relationships, and then also just understanding who your friends are. Um, and since I think we're about getting to that time of switching gears, but I just want to bring this up, and I want us to kind of close out on this here. If the village is missing, the question becomes, who needs it the most right now? Who needs that connection? What do Black youth need today that they're not getting?
More than anything, they need mentorship. When you get in your car in this day and age, in order to go to another city, you have to attach your GPS. Your GPS gives you directions on how to get to the place that you are designated to go. So, just the same, the youth need the wisdom from the elders as a GPS because the roads that they're going down, the elders have already paved the way and been down those roads. So I can tell you the outcome. I can point out where the speed bumps at. I can point out where the stop signs at. I can point out where the potholes at. And if you listen to that right there, it'll save wear and tear on your car because you won't have to run over those things. So it'll benefit the youth as well as the elders because you're looking at a youth that's living in a different world than you grew up in. So it'll force you to learn this new world. You would have to understand why they behave like that. Why is a 13, 14, 15-year-old in a gang packing guns and ready to shoot at will? What motivating factor has him feeling that he has to live this particular lifestyle? And why is these youth gravitating toward the gangs more than the churches, more than the boys and the girls club? What is so alluring about these gangs that the children are starting to flood them? And what are they standing for? So the elders have to begin to say, hey, man, instead of downgrading them, instead of being afraid of them, we have to go and you have to speak their language. So you have to understand the psychology that has them acting in the manner that they do. Because we was once young and older elders used to try to tell us things, and we knew how stubborn and rebellious that we could be against that because we felt that their wisdom was outdated. It wasn't applicable in our lives at this time. Man, stuff don't go like it was back in the days when you was young. We living in a different era. So it's the same thing for us now. So you have to begin to understand and do a little research and see why they act like that. The music that they listen to, the TV shows that they're watching, putting them in a particular mindset. So we have to understand the influences that's going and being poured into our youth. So the mentorship program is very, very important. Without that right there, then our future is extremely bleak. You look at it. Our communities are being decimated with single mothers, young men, now, and at alarming rate, young women being placed in juveniles, being sent to prisons. So in the last 10 years, the Black woman has been locked up more than any other ethnic group. She is surpassing the Black men even. So something is wrong with that. And some changes need to be made. So again, we have to become a community again, instead of just being a bunch of individuals that live on the same block.
Just on some, brother, like that mentorship gap. I believe that is one of the biggest things. And I think that goes back to just talking about being too busy. So we always talk about we're busy, and we're neglecting that part. And and come to find out, the more we neglect that, the more crime we see in our community, and just the more hell that goes on in our community. Minister, are we listening to the younger generation or judging?
I think it's a combination of the two, because the positive side with the, like, I guess from these millennials, Gen Z, and Alpha, and they have technology, so they've been raised differently and they see the world differently, and because of a lived experience is where that mentorship come in, and that understanding. But it's like, if you can get a high tech job, and they learn the computer, they learn digital, it's a touch screen, so it becomes a little abstract. So that mentorship and that understanding of, like, a mentorship is missing, because they may not see the need and understand the importance of the disconnect. And I think, like, we have to build that bridge of, you have to be able to disconnect from the social media, disconnect from the phone, disconnect from the television, and actually reach out and touch, because there are real people. And it's great that people now, like, they can work from home. Some people work full time from home. They don't have to go into an office, or they may go in for a few hours, and they can make really good money doing that. And that's not a bad thing. But when the children don't have to reach out and touch a person, that's where that live communication and how to interact with someone, how to respect the differences in others, is where it misses the mark of. That's where that mentorship, I think, is missing, because you really have to be able to reach out and touch real people. Like, we talk with AI, when you can't have children with artificial intelligence. You can't play you can play basketball on the screen, but you can't physically play basketball without touching another person. And I think that's where the young and the old, we miss it, and we have to be able to bridge that gap of, yes, we have technology, but we can't lose that human connection. And I think that's what's missing. The mentorship is that human connection of one-on-one, and not just being digital, but being able to actually talk to someone, to be able to touch someone and know that that's okay.
Yeah, I just think, I believe, in my opinion, especially when it comes to social media, I think social media works both ways. I think they use it as a therapeutic device. I see sometimes, like, when we're talking about listening to them, because they're on social media, sometimes we have to tune into it just to hear where they are and where they're coming from, because they'll share some of their most personal sides of themselves on social media. and they'll talk about things and just reach out to people and hope that people can respond to them, give them some type of advice and motivation. I think a part of that is listening in and trying to connect with them because of where they are in this social age and environment. It's hard to kind of get them into a location and minister to them or give them life skills. Um, but when you connect with them socially, now they build a certain trust, and I think this nowadays that's how youth are building their trust in the elderly is through social media and things of that nature because they're not trying to talk to parents and they're looking for somebody that are going through or went through some of the challenges that they're going through at this time. And those are the people that they can connect with. Even coming up with this here program that we have right here, Live Talk. Live Talk is about the community, about giving back to the community or helping the community. And as people tune into our show, whether they're adults or children, if you're an adult, you have children, and the same information that we share on this show, you can be sharing with your youth, or you can use some of the advice that we share on this show to begin to connect with your youth, because there are just many different ways when it comes to our youth that they can be connected with, and it's just not one way. We have to find how we can begin listening to them, so now we can deal with their situations and what they're dealing with on a daily basis. Because it can be something in school that's dealing with a peer where they're being bullied or something of that nature. And they're not going to talk about that to anyone. They feel either uncomfortable to talk about it or they're embarrassed to talk about it. But they will go to social media. If you remember, like any youth that have taken their life, there were signs on social media that led up to that people was ignoring. So it's like we have to get back to listening to our youth on the channels that they are sending out those frequencies on. So and that's just my thought and my opinion around that. And I know we have to get ready to switch gears, but you brothers, do you have anything else on that subject around rebuilding our village?
No, sir.
All right, so we'll go to a commercial break and we'll come back with switch gears.
What do all these people have in common besides a beautiful smile, healthy teeth, and gums? They all use Zodi toothpaste. Zodi toothpaste is made with all natural ingredients. Zodi toothpaste is fortified with moringa and baking soda. Zodi toothpaste is suds-free, making it an excellent choice for kids. All natural, fortified, and suds-free. Get yours today at noistore.com.
Because Scott and Associates always treats me like family, I refer my family to them. So when preparing for my taxes and I know exactly what to bring in coming in, it makes the process so much easier. Anyone should hire Scott and Associates because they are professional, respectful, and very knowledgeable. And with all of my heart, I can always count on them.
All right, before we switch gears and I turn it over to you, Brother Ezekiel, we did have a comment that came in. And what was that comment again, Aaron? Okay, and who that came from? You see? Okay, well, for the comment that came in that you're interested in joining, was it joining the community? Yeah. MOP, Men of Purpose, we have a trade show event that we do every year. We're right now trying to get more into the community centers, but since 2020, when COVID came about, we switched gears a little bit because people wasn't connecting like they used to. And that's where a lot of this social media disconnect came from, because um, that's what evolved over that period of time. And that's why you see Live Talk today, because we wanted to stay close to the community in this form and fashion, because we know this was the new age. But definitely, we are a group that love community activism. We love being in the community. Builds Our Highway Foundation, which is our nonprofit side. You can donate to the organization as well. For those out there that want to commit to some of the efforts that we put forth in the community, you can donate as well. Do we have that link for donation? You have that still? Okay. Well, if we don't have it, we'll make sure it's on either our Facebook page, or you go to livetalk orl.com, and then you also can go to that donation page as well. All right. I will now turn it over to my dear brother Ike Ezekiel. What's on your mind, my brother?
It's been exactly what the word of the day was: community. Because one of the things that I've been looking at in the communities that I've been touring is ownership. And we've always spoke about how in the Black communities, we lack ownership of the businesses that's taking the dollars in the community. It's always other ethnicities and different nationalities that come open up their shops in our communities and take our money and invest it back into their own communities. So one of the power that can come from us becoming a community again is that we can pool our resources and begin to get the businesses. You look at one of the pillars in our communities, which is the churches. And within those churches, you have men and women of all different trades, all different skill sets. So we can begin to set up apprenticeships within those churches that will teach the youth how to get a particular skill set, or how to learn about finances, relationships, things of these natures right here, so that we can start investing back in our communities, as far as everybody putting their money together, opening up a hair salon or a barber shop, which is a lot of the men and women in the communities are doing these things on their porches, in their houses, in their garages. They're already being the entrepreneur mindset with that particular skill set that they have. Now we need to just be able to magnify that. But again, they are not making enough as individuals as they would if the rest of the community invested into that right there. And everybody, you get 9, 10 people that's doing hair. Hey man, let's get this building over here and let's open up this salon, and everybody gets shares in it and so forth. And now everybody got a place that they can go to, instead of, dealing with individual barbers and all of that when you're trying to catch them on a time frame. You got one place that's going to be open, whatever the schedule is, that you can go to and get this done for you. So we just lacking ownership. And it's amazing because when you look at the stats of how much money flowed through the Black communities, it's appalling to know that it's not coming back in. It's just a one-way route. It's like how the rappers saying they blowing money fast. That's what we doing in our communities. And we're not getting anything for it because it's gone. We can't say, hey man, I used the money and now look, I got this particular shop over here. I got this business started over here that will feed the community. So that's one of the things that we have to get back to, because every other community doing it. Because they're not going to let you come in there and open up a community in their business. Your business is in their community. That's never going to happen. They're going to run you out. You won't even get the license or anything to purchase or rent a building in their communities, because they understand the power of the dollar. So we have to get that same mindset and tell people, hey, even if you're coming in our communities, we need to see how the money that we're pouring into your store is coming back to our communities. What are you doing to build our communities up with this money right here? So, it's very disheartening to see. And I think this is why the gentrification was so easily implemented, because they didn't have to fight businesses to get the communities and get everybody out of the communities, because most of us was on public housing in some form. So it was easy to just reshuffle and move you from the known projects that was in our communities and scatter you throughout the city, because you didn't have no ownership of anything. Well, they wouldn't have been able to buy these buildings right here, especially at the prices we would have offered. And this is where we're lacking. So we got to get back to this. And what will it take for this to become a reality? How do we start owning our communities? Because we've been in these hoods since we've been over here. We've been in the ghetto for over 4 centuries, but we don't own the ghetto. But the moment that the Haitians get off the boat, they build little Haiti. The people from Cuba get off, they got little Cuba. So all these other communities, the Asians get off, they got Chinatown. They're building in their communities by trading with one another. They understand the synergism of, hey, if we work together, we got more collectively than we do as individuals. So this is the mindset that we got to get back. So in that piggybacks off of what we're saying about the mentorship, about the community ties. You live in this community. What are you doing to make it safe so when you come out to go to your mailbox, somebody ain't lurking in your bushes? You got to want better because it benefits you, because you live in this community. And as elder people, we seem to have a fear of the youth because of the mindset that they have. So you should have a vested interest in trying to change that type of relationship. So
that's you hit the nail right on the head, because even in our community, when we begin to try to create something, somebody try to tear it down, because you would rather buy from another nationality than to buy from me. I've seen that so many times. Or you'll try to, let me get the hookup. But we don't understand the importance of the small business within the community, because when there's a need, that's what we're going to. We're going to that small business when it comes to any type of need that we have. And when you can connect with somebody on a personal level, it's a lot better than trying to connect with, big organization or big company where, they have to go out to corporate to try to get some funding. But when you have that community connection, that's very important to our growth as a community. And Minister, I have you chime in on this, and we got to get ready to shut down. That's what I'm getting a signal.
Actually, I was trying to take it back with that comment that we had, and I couldn't do it because I didn't want to do something technical in the background. But I was wondering if the person who wanted to join the community, I know we put the where they could donate. I don't know if a technical person could do it, but send them either text or email. I wonder, would they be interested in joining a show, or would have some information that we could reach out to them, because they possibly may want to join a show, and I couldn't send it to them without disturbing the program.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We had another comment too.
Well, that comment, they said they were interested in joining the community.
Yeah, but it seemed like another one came in too. So what we'll do, like, give the email address. Is livetalkor@gmail.com. Definitely reach out to us that way.
Yes, and that might be a better way to respond. Because I'm remote, and I didn't want to accidentally drop off or disrupt the program And I didn't want to make so yeah, if they could reach us by email, or we could reach back to an email, that would be great.
I can't see it. Do it say live talk ORL?
Yes, sir.
.com?
It did pop up there for a quick second.
Leave it like that.
Yes.
Right. So that's our email address. Was there another comment that came in there? Okay.
It said cooperation is key for the community ownership. Cooperation is key for community ownership.
And that's very important, because we had Sister Israel on talking about cooperatives on our last show. And that's definitely something that we have to consider when it comes to building a community. Huh? Oh. oh, that was my dear sister. What her link is at? We supposed to brought her on to the show. Well, we thank you for just supporting sister that's sending that information into us, because we always have to have that mindset of cooperative building in our community. And I think we're at the close of this show. And I'll start around the room. I will start on the panel. Go ahead, last words.
Peace. Just continue to pour into your communities, because it'll benefit you as well as everybody in your circle. Have a great evening.
Anderson?
Oh, yes, sir. Community is definitely key, and start that community with your neighbor in your local community, and then let's spread it from there.
Right. And if I have to leave you with anything, I'll say this week, reach out, mentor someone, check on an elder, and build one real connection. So I say that again, mentor someone, check on an elder, and just build that real connection with someone. And I say from the host, peace and prosperity. From Live Talk, we are out.
Thank you for watching Live Talk. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Live Talk Orlando. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit on the notification button so that you can see more videos like this. You want to join the show? Email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com. You can also follow the host on Facebook and Instagram at Arthur Jeremiah. And visit the website, thenoystore.com, to pick up your copy of The Spiritual Significance of a Name.